of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, that sing it unto me, the songs of Mother Goddess and of Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between in this weird world that we live in these days. Poof. You know, I try so hard to not be political because I'm complicated, but I gotta tell you, there are just so easy to be political today. Anyways, I may come back to that because, woof. But, you know, and for now, we are, you know, being broadcast live on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. Excuse me. And if you're listening in on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. That's the thumbs up. And subscribe. And I don't know why. So YouTube did an update. So if you haven't been getting your notifications, make sure that you have had your own update lately. So, anyways, yeah. And no matter how you are listening, make sure you stop in and say hello. And if you can't say hello, just, you know, drop me an email at wildpaisley@gmail.com. That's WILDEPAISLEY@gmail.com. That's me. And if you want to support the show, please do so. That would be awesome. It's etsy.com/Monarch Mountain Studio and MTN for mountain. And you can also go to the Patreon page, and that is patreon.com/the spaces between. Yeah. Oh, whoa, what? Is people calling in already? I ain't even gotten to the phone line number. So, yeah, the number, if you want to call in, is 213-233-3998. Or if you're across the pond in the UK, it is 44203-393-2871. Yeah. Got all that stuff in there. Oh, and if you just want to fund my dreams this way, by all means do it. All right. So, hi. I see lots of people in the chat rooms. So, I see Buzz, Laurence, Brent. Hey, Brent. How'd the show go? I hope everything went well. Chat rooms blowing up everywhere. Bomber, Chris, Jarvis, Elaine, Ethan, Justin, Lewis, Nessie, Sonia, Carlton, Pharmacy Seeds Network, Titan, Lucky at Truth Frequency News, and YTFP Chris. So the Chris's are in the house. So yes, hope y'all are just, oh no. I'm sorry, Brent. Brent got punked. You know, that happens. And so far I've been able to weed them out, but occasionally, wow, yeah, I've gotten a couple of, not a couple, but I've had an email type message kind of thing, and it was just, really? Seriously, you want to go there? I see. So, and yeah, we all get punked when we're on the radio or YouTube. It happens. Mostly because, you know, I think people get bored. They want a little bit of entertainment. They want to participate. And, but without, you know, giving too much of themselves, I guess. I don't know. So, yeah, I'll have to go back and read it because, yeah, you never know. Let's see. So just, so you know, talk about iLife real quick. iLife.com is a lovely place to go. iLife is a CBD oil combination with a part of the ayahuasca plant and CBD. And it's just one of those really awesome shamanic energies to help heal you. So I use it with my daughter. I use it myself, and I can tell when I haven't taken my dose. And yeah, it was just helps you find your center, I think, is what it is. And there's some really awesome energy healing and just physical healing benefits to the iLife. So yeah, iLife.com. Check it out. I'm telling you, it's the official sponsor of Truth Frequency Radio. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, I think that's the big stuff I got to cover. So my topic tonight, I want to talk about psychotropics just a bit. And I need to just, the fine print here is, I am not telling you that you should take psychotropics. Most of them have some legal issues, so be careful with those. Want to... I'm just going to do some overview, a little bit of in-depth. If someone's got an experience with psychotropics that they want to share, by all means, give a call. That is 213-233-3998. It is interesting because I myself haven't really taken very many. A little bit of green stuff, but I didn't trip. I just kind of relaxed, and that's more what it was for. Because I do have some pain issues. But generally, I am the designated driver when someone's tripping. So, talking about the psychotropics. And a lot of them, like I said, are illegal. But, they're doing a lot of studies on some of these that are showing that not only are they, give you some visions and all that and such, but there's some other benefits that people have forgotten. And a lot of the psychotropics are from the earth, and so they mesh well, or mesh better with our bodies and our systems. And I think that's a good thing, because if you are trying to cure yourself or find a different avenue for healing, it may be time to talk to someone about psychotropics. And so I just started a new job. I work in a local rock shop and esoteric shop, or rock shop and rock and esoteric shop. There you go. That's what it is. And it's a really awesome place. But so my time, though, has just been a little bit tighter, but that's okay. It's good. So psychotropics are basically, it's a chemical substance that changes brain function and results in an altered perception, mood, consciousness, cognition, and or behavior. Any medication capable of affecting the mind, emotions, and behavior are also considered psychotropics. And that's including prescription medications, because there are quite a few prescription medications that are mind-altering. Lithium may be used to treat depression, for instance, and that's a psychotropic. And psychotropic is from the Greek psycho, meaning the mind. Trope means a turning, or capable of. So psychotropic, all put together, means a turning of the mind. Basically, you're connecting a little differently to the world. Now, psychedelics are slightly different in that they are a hallucinogenic class of psychoactive drugs whose primary effect is to trigger a non-ordinary state of consciousness and a psychedelic experience via a serotonin to a receptor agonism. This causes a specific psychological, visual, and auditory changes, and often a substantially altered state of consciousness. So, I think the phrase is tripping balls. At least that's what I've heard. So, in doing research, I went to verywellmind.com, and So I'm just going to read the article here, and then we're going to come back and go into some of the things a little bit deeper, I think, some of the different substances. So those, the psychedelic drugs, again, it can include chemicals such as LSD, plants like peyote, that are used recreationally to change and enhance sensory perceptions, thought processes, energy levels, and to facilitate spiritual experiences. Psychedelics have also been used experimentally to mimic psychosis and to exert mind control, although they have not been found to be particularly effective in doing either of those things. They were used in psychotherapy in the 1960s, but was halted mainly for political reasons. Politics, right? Trying not to do that, but politics. Until quite recently, and psychological research has undergone a revival of the use of psychedelics in experimental psychological treatment. The use of hallucinogens goes back for centuries and centuries and centuries. Seriously, more millennia than centuries, honestly, because, yeah. And it's a variety of cultures. And some are still used in religious ceremonies today. Use peaked in the U.S. in the 60s. The rave culture of the 80s brought a new wave of ecstasy for use, which continues today. There are numerous psychedelic substances used in many different cultures. So just going to go over some of the best-known varieties. And Lucky got to go for a short trip, a trip, yesterday. And yeah, floor, it's a lot harder to fall off the floor. And I would recommend being you want to be comfortable and in a safe place. And if you don't feel safe, make sure you have someone with you, especially if you're doing something new, to monitor you, to make sure you're okay. And you want to be comfortable, because if you're laying on the couch or on a chair, you want to make sure you're in the right spot. And some of them, if you're doing like a ceremonial journey, you'll want to make sure your body is oriented correctly as well. So, yeah. Babysitter, not a bad thing for your first journey. So the first one is lisogeric acid, or LSD. LSD is a chemically synthesized hallucinogen developed from ergot, is E-R-G-O-T, ergot. It's a type of mold that grows on rye grain. And LSD was widely used in the 60s, particularly among the young middle-class people, until it was made illegal. And use of LSD has continued despite being a controlled substance, although its use has gone through phases of greater or lesser popularity. Dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, is a naturally occurring plant-based psychedelic found in the bark and nuts of certain trees from Central and South America. The effects of DMT are much shorter than those of other psychedelics, but typically lasting only an hour. This has led to the term businessman's trip, which I think is funny, or businessman's lunch, being used to describe a DMT trip. Oh gosh. Let's see. Ololiuki, or morning glory seeds. Ololiuki is a naturally occurring psychedelic which is found in the seeds of the morning glory flower. The effects are similar to those of LSD, but the drug has remained unpopular due to the many unpleasant side effects, including nausea, vomiting, headache, high blood pressure, and drowsiness. Because, those are all fun things to have, right? Yeah. So Chris in chat goes, you can tell those that trip and those that don't by the way they say the names. And yes, you can. Because, psilocybin, or magic mushrooms, contain a naturally occurring type of hallucinogen called psilocybin, which is found in certain fungi. There is a wide variety of hallucinogenic mushrooms, and their legal status is somewhat ambiguous, as they can be found growing wild in many parts of the world. This can make them appealing to young people keen to experiment with the free drugs that they find. But mushrooms do carry certain risks, given the toxicity of some varieties, which can even be lethal. So yeah, if you are eating a bad mushroom or a poisonous mushroom, it's pretty good. You're only going to eat that mushroom once. Yeah, so yeah. Let's see, just checking the chat. I want to make sure I didn't lose anything. And the call board, because Mr. Don is out of the office this evening because he's a responsible grown-up and goes to work. In addition to being a producer on the show here and also on Paranormal Portal. Yeah, that grown-up world, I gotta tell you. Excuse me. Being a grown-up is an adventure. Yeah. So, ecstasy is a little more difficult to categorize as a psychedelic because the hallucinogenic effects are less pronounced, and the mood-enhancing and stimulant effects are more noticeable to the user than some other psychedelics. However, despite popular myths, ecstasy can induce hallucinations and delusions, and it is possible to have a bad trip on ecstasy, although it is nowhere near as common as bad trips on LSD or mushrooms. Ecstasy has also been associated with an increased risk of health problems arising from overheating, dehydration, and water intoxication. Yeah. Let's see. That one's pretty illegal right now, so I'm not recommending it. It's just an educational thing. And pay attention to your laws if you're going to imbibe or partake of any of these particular things. So, yeah. Let's see. Mescaline, or peyote, is a naturally occurring psychedelic substance found in certain species of cactus, the most well-known being the peyote cactus. The effects of mescaline, which are similar to those of LSD, were well documented in the classic text on hallucinogens, The Door of Perception, by Aldous Huxley, as well as by renowned psychologist Havelock Ellis. Mescaline was the subject of the movie Crystal Fairy and the Magical Cactus. I've never heard of this movie. Interesting. There's often confusion about the legal status of peyote seeds and peyote buttons, although peyote is a Schedule I drug and therefore illegal. The listing of peyote as a controlled substance on Schedule I do not apply to the non-drug use of peyote, and bona fide religious ceremonies of the Native American Church and members of the Native American Church using peyote and religious ceremonies are exempt from registration. Any person who manufactures peyote or distributes peyote to the Native American Church, however, is required to obtain registration annually and to comply with all other requirements of the law. Let's see. So I did not actually have ghost pipes in here, but I will add those, lucky. Let's see. I'm just pulling this up. So psychotropics, and the reason why I'm talking about it is partly because, a friend of mine got to go on a trip, and here last summer last fall, spring, fall, spring. Gosh, I don't know. The months kind of run together after a while. They really do. I was supposed to go on an ayahuasca trip, and it did not happen. Just things did not work out, and that's okay, because it just means that it wasn't time. The right time wasn't. It just wasn't the right time. So, and that's something to be aware of. When you're getting ready to go on a shamanic journey of any kind, Timing is real. And because if you don't have all of the elements available to go on a shamanic type journey or a psychotropic journey, whether that means having someone with you to make sure, to guide you, because some things, for instance, ayahuasca, you really do need kind of a guide to help you, or not necessarily help you, but at least direct you, because there are some things that are just you need to be guided with, or at least someone who understands the potential side effects to help protect you and make sure you're in a safe place for the first time. And you want to be prepared a little bit mentally. What is the purpose? Why are you taking the psychotropics? Because if you're just taking something and you want to just to get a buzz or get high, then you're not taking it for a shamanic journey, or to follow your spiritual path or get in touch with your ancestors or your spirit guides or anything like that. So you just be cautious about what it is that you're taking, making sure that you get it from a reputable source, and that you actually have the thing that you think it is that you're taking. Because there are some, like mushrooms, for instance. If you take the wrong mushroom and it's toxic or poisonous, you're only going to eat it once because you're going to be dead, or you're going to be extraordinarily sick at best case scenario. So, you need to make sure you have the right stuff before you go on your psychotropic journey. Lewis in chat says, try a sweat lodge prior to entering any of those journeys. Yeah, if you've got access to a sweat lodge, absolutely. There's some purification type rituals that you should probably partake in or participate in, just because there are, you want to make sure you're in the right headspace. Because if you're not in the right headspace prior to entering your journey, you're not going to have the results that you think you're going to get, or that you're trying to get. Because if you enter a spiritual journey in an angry mindset, you're not going to receive the results that you're looking for. You won't have the same benefits as if you're you won't have the same benefits. So like for instance, you want some of these, ayahuasca included, water's good, fasting is good, doing a spiritual cleanse is good, doing just a cleanse. This is my selenite one, do a cleanse. It's real. You want to have the as prepared as you are prior to going on a journey. And, you also want to make sure that if you are on any other medications for like blood pressure or depression or something like that, you want to make sure that you're not going to have side effects that are going to make things worse, and they're not going to have a bad compatibility and make things bad, because that happens. So yeah, because you don't want to take the wrong thing, and because if you're already on blood pressure medications because you have high blood pressure, well, there's some things you really shouldn't take, and I'll go over that. It's a short list, but there's a lot of information, really truly. And I'm going to start with ayahuasca after the break, just because it makes sense to start after the break. And it's, I don't know. I was a little nervous about myself about doing any of these psychotropic journeys, just because I don't like losing control, and I'm a control freak, and that's just all there is to it. And but there's, I don't know, I feel like I'm in that point in my spiritual journey that it's time to to partake in something, and I just don't know what. Lewis, you ask how long for your medication if you're to stop taking your medications. Well, you do in a way kind of need to talk to your doctor a little bit about that. So if you're taking a blood pressure medication, for instance, or a diabetes type medication, I would really say, hey doc, I'm doing this shamanic retreat, and I want to, if there's this, I don't know what's going to happen, and it's going to be a shamanic retreat, and I need to, do a fasting, can I skip my medications for a couple days and make sure that, whatever it is, and just touch base with your doctor before you abstain from taking your medications. I don't want to say, hey, stop taking your pills, because that's a different problem altogether. Really, truly. So we're at first break already, so we will be right back, and I will pick up with ayahuasca and some of the benefits and go from there. So we'll see you in a bit.
Oh Lord, within the sun, as we will, so mote it be, the spell forever done.
lovelies. This is Paisley Wild and Weird, venturing off into the spaces between. We're hanging out in the tropics. The tropics. In the tropics.
Yes, tripping on the tropics,
Yep.
not in the tropics.
Yeah, tripping on the tropics, not in the tropics. Yep, absolutely. So I hope y'all are having just a lovely time of it. Not necessarily evening. Could be morning, afternoon. Hello, hello. And, oh, there you are.
Oh,
Now you can speak.
yes. There we go.
Yeah, Mr. Don's here.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Don's tied in a knot.
I can hear now. Oh, me. Oh, my.
Oh, there you are.
Gosh.
Oh,
Yeah, the camera's all screwy. There we go.
hold on. Let me see where it's pointed. Yeah, there you are.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
How
Mr.
are ya?
Don. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, tired.
How was your day at the office?
I have the weekend off. Who cares about the office?
I have to work all weekend.
When? Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Sunday, too?
No, I have Sunday off.
Okay.
I'm excited about that. I think it'll be good. At least, you know, although I have to tell you, Monday
Uh-huh.
is my weekend.
Oh?
So that means I get to sleep in on Monday. That is the best way to spend a Monday.
I see how you are.
So Titan just asked if the spiritual quests or journeys on the psychotropics should be done alone or not.
Oh, goodness.
I think it varies.
Yeah.
For your very first time on something, I would really recommend having someone there.
Hmm. Somebody who's got a little bit of experience.
Exactly, because you don't want to just... what if you have an allergic reaction or a bad reaction or a bad trip? You want to be safe. And that's my biggest recommendation. If you're going to do some sort of journey, I want you to be safe about it. I don't want you to just go tripping balls somewhere and try to stand on a ball and fall over and break something, because that's not my idea of a good time.
Or go skinny dipping in the Sea of Cortez.
You know, that is not something I've ever had. No.
That was fun.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
I was surrounded by 30 people and I was drowning in 1.5 feet of water.
You know, when you say stuff like that, it's like, wow, are you really that short? But you're not. Yeah, you know, play it safe. As you know,
Yes.
it is important, I think, to be safe when you're doing one of these journeys, and making sure that you are prepared, like I mentioned before break. Be prepared. You know, drink your water if you need to. Stay hydrated. Fasting is good, because sometimes some of them you do need fasting. Yeah, tripping at a party, yes, Chris, is different from preparing yourself for a trip. There's two. It's.
I think last week I mentioned something about tripping in the bathtub playing Tool, the anime album. It was actually quite the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I don't know how the lights got turned off, but it was awesome.
Oh dear.
Still don't figure. I can't figure that out. Anyhow, but
Okay.
definitely, you know, I mean, once you're, you know, the first time I did, I had people I could trust around,
Mm-hmm.
and people who had done it before, so they were cool with, you know, whatever happened, which was really cool. It was a good trip. And so I felt really comfortable and really, you know,
Safe.
tuned to it,
Mhm.
you know. And so if I did it by myself, it wasn't a big deal. Another thing is, you want to make sure that what you have, whatever it is, you know, I wasn't listening to the show, because oddly enough, I had some deep trance going in the car on the way home, and which is perfect music for that, for me at least. But you want to make sure that whatever you have is clean. however that may be. So,
Yeah, you want to make sure you clean, you have the right thing, you have the right stuff. Lucky says it seems there's a blurring of lines with the synthetic DMT versus the natural earth-based products. Yeah, the synthetic stuff, just for instance, I have a thyroid disorder, so I take a thyroid hormone, and the synthetic hormone I have a weaker reaction to, so I have to take the real stuff. And so when it comes to synthetic drugs in general, they don't have the same effect as the natural stuff often. So just pay attention.
You know, Titan also just said, so is intent. If you go into it as a quest rather than entertainment, it may determine the experience. Yeah, and you know, when I first did, it was an entertainment for the first 2 times, and then when I figured out what was really happening, you know, my intent changed a whole lot. You know, just sitting in the car driving home, you know, I was having flashbacks, and that's okay because they're all physical. They're not psychedelic flashbacks. They're body high flashbacks, real clean stuff. So, you know, I mean, those are pleasurable, you know, as opposed to, you know, oh my God, you know, the road just turned into a barrel and you're, you know, surfing the Pacific, you know, it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah. And intent, yeah, I think is very, very different.
Yes.
And that's why if you have someone there to help you, your anxiety is...
Switch the scenes.
Okay.
Because I'm eating.
You're eating. So yeah, if your anxiety can often impact your trip, your anger, what your mood, the mood that you're in.
Right. Right.
You need to be mentally prepared for the trip, not just like, woohoo, let's go fly. It's you know, what are you trying to get out of it? Right. So yeah, intent.
Well, so
is important.
I suggested, because of the show coming up tomorrow night, I suggested you look into doing a show about alchemy and things like that. What made you decide to go with this particular side of that kind of a thing?
It's something that I kind of wanted to talk about at some point anyways, and I don't know, it just felt appropriate. I know there's, I think maybe we need to stop and think about how to fix some of the things in our world right now. And to figure out what that solution is, we may have to look in places that not everybody is looking.
And I noticed you've been posting you've posted a few recently, articles you found about how psychedelics could open the door for a cleaner answer to depression and things like that. So
yeah,
I did see that.
This morning on my drive to work, I was listening to a show on YouTube about how the psilocybin, the tryptophan mushrooms, had a more positive impact on depression than a lot of medications, because a lot of medications you have to take every day. And for the study group that they had, it was 70% effective in decreasing depression, and for 20% of them, it was a long-term result. Instead of taking a drug every day, they took the mushrooms in a therapeutic setting, and it
would have a more lasting effect.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4 years of no depression symptoms. Some people had a weaker reaction, and so those folks would have to go and take the mushrooms again in 2 or 3 months.
Doesn't sound too bad to me.
It's like, all right, so, but, you know, here, I'm going to go take some shrooms every couple months rather than taking mind-altering drugs from Big Pharma every day. It's like, which one is the better solution here? I personally think listen to the earth. There are some things out there that the earth really has the right solution. And I honestly think that for every disease or illness that we experience as people, there is a solution or a medication for it, or a way to fix it in the natural plant world. Or at least there was, if it hasn't already been killed out because of
Right.
improper treatment of the rainforests or...
Oh, and there's a lot to be said about microdosing too, as opposed to just, you know, eating an eighth of Cabenzis, you know, or just, you know, just hitting that big old, you know, piece of paper, just letting it melt in your mouth. You know, and incremental, start microdosing, and then, you know, double that, you know, every other time or so. You know, it kind of eases you into it, but it also kind of builds up it kind of builds up the, you know how they say, oh, it's going to take like 2 weeks for this to really start kicking in for you. Well, you know, you're building that up, so it dissipates slower when you do it that way as well, because you've got the built up psilocybins and such in you that are working its way out. And so I really think microdosing would be a way to go for long-term health. If you're, you know, suffering from something like that, whether it be anxiety or depression, PTSD
is a big one.
Right.
And I wish, like psilocybin, for instance, wasn't so demonized by the masses, or ayahuasca or DMT or you know, any of those, peyote even, because are people going to abuse it? Yes, because people are people and they make poor choices all the time. But you punish the individual, not the plant, I guess, is, you know, rather than demonizing something that is grown naturally and wild.
You know, I don't see anything wrong with having medically overseen things like that, using psilocybin and even marijuana, LSD to a point. Ecstasy is one of the better now, but that's a pharmaceutical drug. But ecstasy is a type of MDMA. We used to call it the hug drug or the love drug back in the 80s. And they found that that's one of the best antidepressants in the world. The problem is that it's connected with the big pharma and the pharmaceutical industries. But there are things that will do the same thing in nature. And I don't see any reason not to have somebody in the medical profession, you know, monitoring this. And then after a point, you know, it's like, okay, well, check in with me, you know, let me know how things are going. You know, this is how I'd like you to, you know, pursue that particular medicine. And that's the way it should be looked at. It should be looked at as medicine. Yeah,
medicine rather than drug. Two different things in my mind. Drugs are drugs, medicines are medicines, and yeah, and apothecaries often have medicine versus drugs.
Right.
Speaking of apothecaries, tomorrow night I have a guest. His name is Sam. Sam does apothecary type stuff. And so we're going to be talking about some alchemy type things. Also, what's in a name? Because a lot of us, as we get on the pagan path or the become more witchy in our behaviors, often adopt a new name or take on a new name. And it's not necessarily a secret name for rituals and such. It's just a
professional name.
A professional name or just it's who we are now. And so we talk about it, or we're going to talk about it tomorrow night. So I think that'll be good.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to it. So yeah. Let's see. So ayahuasca. So ayahuasca has been traditionally used for religious and spiritual purposes by specific populations. It has become more popular worldwide. by those who seek a way to open their minds, heal from past traumas, or just simply experience an ayahuasca journey of some sort. Now, it is strongly recommended that ayahuasca only be taken when supervised by an experienced shaman, as those who take it need to be looked after carefully, because an ayahuasca trip does lead to an altered state of consciousness that can last for hours. It's not a short trip. This is a long one. Many people do travel to countries like Peru, Costa Rica, and Brazil, where they may do multi-day ayahuasca retreats. They're led by experienced shamans who prepare the brew and monitor participants for safety. Before partaking in an ayahuasca ceremony, it is recommended that participants abstain from cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, sex, and caffeine to purify the bodies.
That doesn't sound all that fun.
It doesn't necessarily have to be like for a long time. But,
True.
It's also suggested to follow various diets, such as vegetarianism or veganism, for 2 to 4 weeks prior to the experience. The thought is that it's a way to cleanse the body and make it free of toxins. Let's see. Ayahuasca ceremonies are usually held at night and last until the effects of the ayahuasca has worn off, and the space is prepared and blessed by the shaman leading the ceremony, and then ayahuasca is offered to the participants. It's sometimes split into several doses, and it's a process. And after consuming the ayahuasca, most people do start to feel the effects within 20 to 60 minutes. The effects are dose dependent, and the trip can last 2 to 6 hours. Those who take ayahuasca can experience symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea, feelings of euphoria, strong visual and auditory hallucinations, mind-altering psychedelic effects, fear, and paranoia. It should be noted that some of the adverse effects, such as vomiting and diarrhea, are considered a normal part of the cleansing experience.
Gee, I wonder why.
The vomiting, the diarrhea, you're purging yourself basically of those negative energies and stuff. Believe it is stuff.
That's
yeah.
part of the belief.
Yeah. People do react to ayahuasca differently. Some experience euphoria and a feeling of enlightenment. Others do go through a severe anxiety and panic. It's not uncommon for those taking ayahuasca to experience both positive and negative effects from the brew. The shaman and others who are experienced in ayahuasca offer spiritual guidance to participants throughout the experience and monitor the participants for safety. Some retreats have medical staff on hand as well, just in case of emergencies. So yeah, just really, really being safe. These ceremonies are sometimes conducted consecutively, with participants consuming ayahuasca a few nights in a row. And every time you take ayahuasca, it results in a different experience. So yeah, it's interesting. So recent research has shown that ayahuasca can benefit health, specifically brain health. Because the main active ingredients in ayahuasca, DMT and the carbolines, have shown to exhibit neuroprotective and neurorestorative qualities in some studies. I'm not going to go into all the science there, but there's a lot of science about it, because it's something that's being more researched more and more. Partially, Big Pharma likes to license things and charge you big bucks for them, and a lot of people want to try ayahuasca, so it's a potential avenue for funds for them. So yeah, they're going to do research. But ayahuasca can show that there's an increase in mindfulness capacity in your brain and improve your overall psychological well-being. Let's see, they've done several studies that show that mindfulness increases as you take more ayahuasca. And even a couple weeks, 4 to 6 weeks later, you go back and they check in with you, and you're still showing that you're experiencing those positive effects. Even months later, and they're showing that ayahuasca may help those with PTSD as well, because they can kind of, in a semi-controlled environment, they can go back and touch into those situations that cause the PTSD and resolve them. in a way that lessens the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. Anything to lessen the trauma, just about. That's a big deal. So some of the effects. While taking an ayahuasca ceremony may seem alluring, consuming this psychedelic brew can lead to serious, even deadly side effects. First, even though many of the unpleasant side effects that are usually experienced during ayahuasca trips, such as vomiting, diarrhea, paranoia, and panic,
Ugh.
are considered normal and only temporary, they can be distressing because you don't necessarily want to do that in a public space.
You
But
don't want to be panicking while tripping.
right. Some people do report they have a horrible experience, and there's really no way to tell who's going to have that bad experience until they partake. Ayahuasca can interact very dangerously with many medications, including antidepressants, psychiatric medications, drugs for Parkinson's, cough medicines, weight loss medications, and others. So if you're going to do an ayahuasca trip, I would strongly recommend talking to your doctor or pharmacist and say, hey, listen, this is something I want to try. What's the potential side effects? I don't want you to talk me out of it, but just the medication I'm taking, how is it going to interact?
Right. That's part of the preparation getting up there is to, be free of those things for a while, get those out of your body as well. Now, Lucky did say that, some of that has to do with getting rid of toxins in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it also has to do with removing the wood bark that you've consumed. You're not going to get all of it out. But, yeah, your body can't process wood. That's always a good idea, is make sure that you're not, contaminated with something else before you go into it. Now, I've never really been on drugs, and I've never really felt that I needed to. But, I have to say, ayahuasca is not one of those that I want to try. I found what I like.
Mm-hmm.
I found what works with me.
Yeah.
And so,
So, like you said in chat, ayahuasca doesn't really kill people, and that's the next thing is, ayahuasca can increase your heart rate and blood pressure, which can result in dangerous side effects if you have a heart condition, or
Right.
if you don't pay attention to that, or if you're not taking care of it. So that's why, check your medications. And because some of your pharmaceuticals are not going to blend well. And most of the deaths reported due to ayahuasca consumption, they're due to those other ingredients that people will put in. Because if in the clinical studies, death has not been reported. So basically it's the additives in private ceremonies versus the clinical trials. It's the ones you're doing privately. You need to make sure that your brew is being prepared by someone who's responsible and understands what they're doing, and
Right.
isn't putting random stuff in there.
And Lucky says there are crazy shamans out there too.
Yes, there are. Yes, the crazy wizard archetype is real for a reason. There's some stereotypes. It's kind of like stereotypes, It's like, oh, that's a stereotype. The whole, like Karen, for instance, has become a stereotype.
But that's because,
But it's
like
because
you said,
there's
that's why
a
we
foundation for it.
that's why we put warnings on things that says caution hot, because there's some idiot who's got to try their luck. It's the same thing.
Yep. So, just pay attention and communicate with whomever is leading your ritual with the ayahuasca, and make sure that they understand that you have health concerns and you're doing that research, because it is, before you participate, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're not going to kill yourself on it. So, and I mean, you're taking your life in your own hands. I mean, so it's be responsible for yourself. Heaven forbid, right? So, I personally, I would like to try ayahuasca. I think it would be interesting. I don't have a problem going down that route. I would probably invest in Depends prior to, just in
I
case.
was thinking adult diapers, yeah.
Yeah. It depends on what happens. But I just, prepare. So, the Geos, Chris and Sherry Geo, the owners.
Ayahuasca.
At Ayahuasca, they do have some more information there. And they have a hashtag, Become Your Own Shaman hashtag. Make your own. You figure it out. So, yeah, just figure it out. Talk to your shaman or your spiritual leader. So, it is a second break here just about. And just checking the call board. So we will be right back after this break. And you can call. It's okay.
Oh, bumper.
Hello,
Oh,
my
bumper.
lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are just bounced around in the spaces between. We're tripping in the tropics.
Whatever.
Why not? So,
Whatever.
the next one on my list is DMT. I'm not going to talk about LSD because there's a lot of information out there on LSD. Do your own research. It's not legal, so a lot of these aren't really. Some of them are in the gray area. So
Some of them are like 80% gray.
yeah. Hey, Naysay. So let's see. DMT. Next one. So DMT is dimethyltryptamine. I'm totally impressed I said that.
Wonderful.
It's a hallucinogenic tryptamine drug that occurs naturally in many plants and animals. It also referred to as the spirit molecule due to the intense psychedelic experience that you may have. Although lesser known than other psychedelics such as LSD or magic mushrooms. And this is from medicalnewstoday.com. DMT produces a brief but intense visual and auditory hallucinogenic experience. DMT is a Schedule I controlled substance in the U.S. This means that it is illegal to manufacture, buy, possess, or distribute the drug. The substance has a high potential for abuse, no recognized medical use, and a lack of accepted safety parameters for the use of the drugs. So, just pay attention. I'm not saying you should go buy DMT because I'm not going to say you should go break the law. You are all grown-ups. This is a grown-up show, so I expect you to make your own grown-up opinion.
You know, I don't know much about ayahuasca and DMT per se, but I do understand that a DMT trip, if you just straight up smoke DMT, it's 15 minutes, a half hour at most.
So, Lucky mentioned in the chat that time dilation is a thing. So when you're experiencing a trip, even though it may only last 15 minutes, it may feel much longer.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if like an ayahuasca experience, it lasts a couple hours. Physically, it may feel like you were only gone for a few minutes. So it's, you know, that time dilation, time distortion is a very, very real thing. Yeah. So just be aware. And that's part of the reason why you should have a guide with you too. Or someone there to kind of babysit you. So DMT has no approved medical use in the U.S., but can be used by researchers under a Schedule I research registration that requires approval from both the DEA and the FDA. Despite its illegal status, DMT is used in some religious ceremonies in various settings for an awakening or to obtain deep spiritual insight. So, as a science periodical that I'm getting this information from, it's going to be mostly science-based. I do have some other information, but yeah. DMT, something that's been used for thousands of years. It's of the earth, so yeah, it's a thing. The use of the drug as part of shamanic rituals is very common in South America. It produces powerful hallucinations, and yeah, the spirit molecule. So, DMT is often considered a way to touch with your spirit guide or have more of a spiritual awakening. DMT is consumed, vaporized, or smoked in a pipe. You can drink it orally in brews like an ayahuasca drink. Some people snort it, which I don't understand why. I can't even put sinus medications in my nose. I don't get it. Or injected. Again, why?
That doesn't even appeal to me on any level.
No.
No. You know, interesting you said spirit molecule, because the body actually does produce DMT in small amounts. Now, people who have had NDEs, near-death experiences, those have been put off to attributions of DMT dumps in the body. The body just going, oh, we're going to die, so we're going to dump the DMT and get it out of there. And it's been said that that's what causes potential NDEs. So, your body does make DMT, but not at noticeable levels.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, so it's just a thing. I don't know. I don't know if that's true about the pineal gland or the whatever releasing at the time of death. If
Right.
you're having it's very possible. No, it's very possible.
so that's why they say that, well, it's just your body flushing, and it wasn't actually you meeting God or whatever that particular experience was. That's not what it was. It was you tripping balls, and
Yeah.
that's all they're going to tell you about it.
So the chemical root structure of DMT is actually similar to the anti-migraine drug sumatriptan, and acts as a non-selective agonist at most or all of the serotonin receptors, particularly at the serotonin 5-HT2A receptor. And serotonin is a neurotransmitter that has a large effect on the majority of our brain cells. So DMT is one of those things that your body is going to absorb naturally because it is produced in the body. Kind of like marijuana often is more absorbed, or the body likes it more than some of the other treatments you might take for, say, cancer or depression or Parkinson's.
Well,
or,
you have receptacles in your brain for CBD and the other, well, THC, but other parts of these kind of drugs. You have the serotonin receptors. And
yeah, and that's why I say some. I think there's really truly a medication out there for pretty much anything we might have wrong with us in the plant world, because our bodies already have an open door, if you will, to that particular substance, saying, "Hey, come join us. The party's fun." But no, it's and it's harder for the synthetics of those particular substances to have that same effect.
Well, and they gum up the receptors too. They block them. MAOI inhibitors, MAO inhibitors. Saying MAOI inhibitors is redundant. So those gum up your brain and don't like to let go.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why if you take ibuprofen, Tylenol, any of that, even for any length of time, your body builds up a resistance to it, and you need to stop because it's gummed up those receptors, and you're just not getting the same benefits. You take too much Tylenol anyways, and your kidneys will say,
That's true.
WTF are you doing?
Ibuprofen will start eating through your stomach.
So, yeah, you just got to pay attention. Moderation there. And if you're taking that much that you're getting health benefit negative or health non-benefit,
You're getting negative
effects from your over-the-counter painkillers, maybe it's time to talk to your doctor because you're taking the wrong thing. Just saying. So that's just kind of the... Hold on, I got another article here talking about DMT that's not quite as sciencey. So yeah, like I said, I'm just kind of reading from... Sorry, Ethan. All this information making you sleepy. So
what is the connection? What is the point of these this particular conversation in regards to your pagan path or the pagan path?
So a lot of the psychotropics are used for a shamanic journey or a spirit journey. So if you're trying to connect with your ancestors, your spirit guides, the deities you work with, any of that, often they will, if you will open your third eye a bit and make you more receptive to those visions. Sometimes they can help with shadow work when you're trying to work through something, because it's often our ego gets in the way when we're trying to work through something negative. And that's frustrating because, it's like, man, I want to make things, I want a better life. I don't want to be so depressed all the time, but I don't know how to not be depressed all the time. And you can go to the doctor and the doctor will give you a pill, or you can work on you do your shadow work and do some shrooms, and that depression has been affected then by the magic mushroom, and you're not as you're feeling better. It helps you. Lucky says it also helps you see the magic that you're doing, even when you're not tripping. So basically, for me, and I agree with that, Lucky, that it just kind of opens yourself to the experience of magic or energy work, because often our ego gets in the way in our day-to-day life, and
yeah, a lot of these are really great ego erasers.
yeah, ego is
separate that right out of you.
Yeah, it's like, ego, you're gonna go night night. So, oh, dog. Sorry, the dog sat on the cord again. So just again, that's part of the reason why you need to have someone with you to kind of babysit you, because that's you. I'm sorry, he keeps knocking over here. I'll just leave it there. Is that better?
Oh goodness, yeah, that works great.
All right, it's all tipped over. Don't move, Basil. But yeah, you see the energy differently. You see the spirit world differently. Sometimes you can go to different realms, and just have that spiritual interaction that is harder to have when your ego is in control. So, so the next one, I found a fun article. It says 7 mind-bending facts about magic mushrooms. Some grow nearly 30 feet tall before trees existed years and years ago. So, Alice in Wonderland, yeah.
Eat me.
Those mushrooms are real. So there are 2 basic types, but there's 200 different species of psychedelic fungi. The 2 different categories are characterized by a distinct mix of mind-altering ingredients that make their mushrooms magic. The largest, most common group produces hallucinogens called psilocybin or psilocin, and features more than 180 species from every continent except Antarctica. And these diverse fungi hail from roughly a dozen genera, but are often lumped together as psilocybin mushrooms. Most of them belong to the genus Psilocybe, including well-known species like P. cubensis, or goldtop, and P. similancetia, or Ciata, liberty caps. Psilocybin fungi might be so diverse, according to a couple different studies, because they didn't inherit the genes behind psilocybin from a common ancestor, but passed them directly among distant species in a phenomenon called horizontal gene transfer. And it's thought that psilocybin could have originally evolved as a defense mechanism, deterring fungi-eating pests by altering their minds.
That's interesting. I guess I can't eat you now.
Right? Let's see. The other group is a little smaller, but has a rich history of religious use. It consists of 1 iconic species, the Amanita muscaria, or the fly agaric, plus a few less famous relatives like A. pantherina, or panthercap. Instead of psilocybin or psilocin, its main hallucinogen chemicals are known as muscimol and ibotenic acid. These muscimol mushrooms are related to some notoriously toxic fungi, like death caps and destroying angels. And they're generally less poisonous than those killer cousins, but given the high stakes of a mushroom mix-up, non-experts are advised to steer clear of the amanita altogether.
Right, because there's a few things you have to do to prepare an amanita, and boiling them is one of them. You've got to be really careful about your preparation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Amanita is one of those ones that I stay away from. Now, you can buy fly agaric tinctures on Amazon, I believe it is.
Oh, really?
Yes. And they're good for more medicinal purposes instead of tripping. There's some pain reduction I've found with it. It really doesn't work very well for me. Maybe it may just be the fact that I'm purchasing it online and somebody else has, prepared it. But then again, they have to prepare it in such a way that it falls below the FDA and the DEA as well. So lots of issues with that. But Amanita is not one I've gone near. So
Yeah, so magic mushrooms may have given us Santa Claus.
you think?
The story of Santa Claus is pretty odd when you think about it. From magic elves and flying reindeer to Santa's chimney and his iconic red and white suits. So, according to the theory, many of these quirks come from Mescaline mushrooms, or more specifically, from Siberian shamans who distributed them centuries ago. So, the A. muscaria has been long valued in Siberia, where human consumption dates back to at least the 1600s. While some of that was obviously recreational, Siberian shamans ingested the fungi to commune with the spirit world. So it was a shamanic journey. And they shamans give out shrooms as gifts in late December, often entering the homes via the rooftop due to the deep snow. But yeah, it was a gift. So humans and magic mushrooms do go back millennia. There's little statues and stuff, of course. Nobody knows when people discovered mushrooms. Probably when somebody was hungry and just ate one. It's like, woohoo, that was fun.
Or hoo-hoo, I'm dead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you only eat the bad ones once.
Yeah, that's true.
But they were probably used in religious rituals thousands of years ago because they were easy to get. There wasn't a lot of production, And there's actually a mushroom cult in Mesoamerican cultures. Let's see. It was just a long time ago. It was like 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. The psilocybin seems to reorganize the brain slightly, which I think is cool, and that's part of the reason why it helps with depression. So psilocybin binds to a receptor in the brain for serotonin, and that's thought to cause many of its sensory distortions. Yet along with the hallucinations and mood changes, people who take psilocybin often describe an abstract dreamlike sense of expanded consciousness, and in recent years, technology like functional magnetic resonance, or MRIs, has shed light on what this looks like inside the brain, which is really interesting. One study found a dramatic change in brain organization, linking the psilocybin with a temporary flurry of neural connections that don't normally exist. So we find that the psychedelic state is associated with a less constrained and more intercommunicative mode of brain function. So, psilocybin may cause a lasting personality change. While brain activity generally returns to normal after psilocybin wears off, research suggests that some effects can last longer. They've done a few studies that measured how psilocybin affects 5 domains of personality: neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Only scientists come up with words that are like this long that mean crazy, extroverted, talking, agreeable, and aware. So it found a significant increase in openness following a high-dose psilocybin session. Openness is a psychological term for someone's attitude towards new experiences and is associated with traits like imagination, creativity, and aesthetic appreciation. So not only did openness generally rise during a psilocybin session, but nearly 60% of the study participants, it remained significantly higher for more than a year after the session. So basically,
Mushroom's good for you.
yeah, and it's not something that the scientists really expected. They were just looking, oh, these are bad side effects, bad mushrooms. Wait, what? It's good for you. Wait a minute, come back here. So yeah, it was just one of those things. Psilocybin can temporarily dissolve your ego. which is good for you sometimes. So some people report losing their sense of self while on mushrooms. This dissolving of the ego is typically short-lived, but may be related to some longer-lasting effects of psychedelics, like the openness that I mentioned earlier. And according to a couple different studies, temporary ego loss can be beneficial in the right context. So this ego dissolution results in a moment of expanded awareness, a feeling in which the mind is put more directly and intensely in touch with the world. And through this experience, it may be possible to re-engineer the mechanisms of self, which can, in turn, change people's outlook or worldview. And the profound sense of connection produced by this experience has the potential to be beneficial for people suffering from anxiety, depression, and some forms of addiction. So basically, mushrooms are good for you.
Can you just turn my camera off? It's driving me nuts.
Why? Because it's not centered?
Yes.
Your OCD's kicking in. CDO. Well, don't look behind me, but some of the lights are burnt out.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
And then when I look at the screen, it's backwards.
No, what to tell you, man.
Let me flip that camera. But anyhow.
Anyways, so mushrooms are generally outlawed and commonly dismissed as party drugs. People they're safer than most people believe, and they show a real potential to help with a lot of mental health issues. And so that's why there's more and more studies. Ethan, caffeine is labeled as a drug.
Mm-hmm.
And the magic mushrooms are thinking it as more of a psychiatric wonder drug, because there's so many different studies showing that it's great for depression, PTSD, and just boosting emotional brain awareness and responsiveness. So, and it relieves that depression without, removing a person's personality,
Right.
Because a lot of the drugs that people take for depression mute them.
Mute them? Have you ever taken lithium?
No.
Oh my God! It doesn't mute you. And that and what was the other one? There's another one. Lithium.
Well, there's all sorts of different types of drugs that people take for depression. And they're some of them just really do.
Thorazine. Thorazine's the other one.
Thorazine?
Yeah, all you do is shuffle around.
Yeah.
Or you just stand in a corner. There is no personality with that kind of stuff.
So yeah, loss of personality, loss of self. Who wants that? I mean, I don't want to be a mind numb, drooling person in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my goal in life. And so yeah, if I was having some severe depression issues, I would look for something else. I wouldn't just say, "Hey, give me a pill." And it's just, I don't know, it's just frustrating. Psilocybin should be more widely used, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of those cases where I say, the medical oversight the first, few times, and then, check in with me, here's what I suggest, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be more Chinese medicine or, Eastern. Yeah.
And we don't need that, or we do need that. We need more of this acceptance of the alternative medications,
right.
Which, oddly enough, they've been around longer than Western medicine.
Yeah.
So
we haven't been able to split atoms for our entire civilization.
So they've used psilocybin on anxiety, and it's helped there too. So people with cancer, they were told that they were terminal, so they're like, yeah, sure, I'll try shrooms. I don't care at this point. What's it going to do? Kill me? I'm going to be dead in 7 months anyways.
Right.
But it's shown that it's lessened their anxiety and depression enough that they're suddenly active in their health care, and they are more positive about the potential outcome of their treatments, and so it actually increased their lifespan and their quality of life, which is huge because a lot of people on cancer treatments, quality of life is suffers just a little bit.
Right, quite a bit, yeah.
Because chemo and radiation, those are bad. So
the only radiation you should be getting is from UVA and UVB light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really, truly. So I just thought that was some interesting things there. Somebody asked me about ghost pipe.
Lucky, I
Yep.
think, mentioned it last week.
Yep, and she mentioned it in chat earlier too. So ghost pipe is the little bitty mushroom. Very fine. It's white. It's very ghost-like. It's also known as Indian pipe. It looks like a fungus. However, it's not. It's actually a flower. It's in the blueberry family.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh, break time. We'll be right back. That's not up on me.
In the sun, as we will, so mote it be, the spell forever done. Find you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me the songs of Mother Goddess and of Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. We're having a journey tonight. How's that sound?
Having a journey tonight, yes.
Yes, we're on a journey. So I'm talking about Indian pipes, and those of you on YouTube, you can see what an Indian pipe looks like. It's a flower, not a mushroom. It does have some psychotropic properties. It's one of about 3,000 species of non-photosynthetic flowering plants, which is why it's white. And even though it doesn't use sunlight,
It doesn't have chlorophyll, so it can't create its own food.
Exactly. It gets all of its nutrients from decaying organic material.
It's a parasitic.
Yeah, it's a parasitic plant.
Yeah.
So. And it uses fungus as a bridge between itself and its host or whatever it's feeding on, which is interesting. No leaves, just the little white stems and little white flowers. And they are technically medicinal and or edible, I should say. They've been used extensively for medical purposes. According to Plants for a Future, the whole plant can be cooked. It is tasteless if eating raw, but has a taste like asparagus when cooked.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, depending on where you're at, it is a protected plant. So, be aware of that, because it's not something that you can just take, because it's rare. So pay attention. So ghost pipes, and if you ingest them, often it helps you connect with your ancestors and such. So, and it can help you work through pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. And let's see. When harvesting, you want to make sure you're wildcrafting here. So when you're harvesting, you don't want to take all of the plants in a cluster. You'll just want to take one or two. And some people will tincture the roots. Some will do the whole plant. Personally, I would probably do the whole plant rather than just the roots. And it says, you know what? You make the tincture with 100 proof vodka.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who are doomsday preppers, vodka should be an essential part of your closet.
Or at least learn to make it.
Yeah, or learn how to make it.
It's not that hard.
Because it's good for tinctures, and if you're doing your, home medicine, homeopathy type things, having that on hand to make your own tinctures is important. And make sure you're getting it from a reputable source. So when you make it yourself, be careful with your moonshine and make sure you're producing it correctly so you don't, give yourself blindness or some other issue.
Kill yourself because of that. Yeah. You want lots of copper.
Mm-hmm.
You want lots of copper in your distillation.
And for pain relief, you want to do it by the drops. You can do 3 drops up to a milliliter, until you have the desired effects. So just be aware that, ghost pipes, they are something you can take, but they can have some other side effects, and just be aware, do your own education, research and such before you you take anything like this. And then when it comes to wildcrafting, make sure you're actually harvesting the thing that you're trying to harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Because you only eat a bad mushroom once, and you don't want to poison yourself. So With all of, as I'm talking, I hope you make sure you guys, if you're going to do one of these journeys, journal your experience, write it down. Everything you remember, write it down as soon as you can, because you're going to want to go back and read it and think about what it was that you experienced and try to interpret it. If you have a priest or priestess or shaman that you're working with, they can often help you interpret what you saw or what you experienced. And yes, so make sure that you have some way to recall whatever it is that you experience, because there are some things. I've got a couple dreams firmly stuck in my brain that are never going to go away, and that are probably more. I think they're more journeys rather than straight dreams, and I've gotten 2 of them written down, the 2 that I remember the most, and that's cool. But if I didn't write them down, I'd start losing the details. So yeah, make sure you write your stuff down so you can go back to it, and make sure that you are really working through what you think you're working through and your interpretation is correct. So I'm not going to talk about ecstasy because there's a lot of information out there on it, and I don't feel like I need to. So there. So I'm going to move on to mescaline and peyote.
Mm-hmm.
So peyote is technically endangered. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. But it is spiritually sacred, and it is becoming legal slowly. For centuries, Mexican Indians and Native Americans in the Southwest have used peyote, a hallucinogenic cactus, for certain religious ceremonies and rituals. And during the psychedelic-infused days of the 60s, peyote found a new audience among counterculture hippies seeking a back-to-nature lifestyle.
You're just killing that piece of hardware.
No, I did not.
Blame it on the dog.
I am blaming it on the dog because he was totally wrapped up in the cord. And it tipped over. So, I don't know what to tell you, man. So peyote's in the news these days because it's kind of put in the same category as magic mushrooms, and it's been decriminalized in a couple of different places, mostly cities rather than states, because I don't know why. It's a weird world that we're living in right now. But it's a cactus, which is bizarre to me.
Right. It's actually like it's like a mole on the cactus. It's a button.
Yeah. So it's technically a cactus that grows underground, and only its top or button, like the flower, which is about the size of a baseball, actually comes out of the ground. Lucky that piece of equipment sitting on the desk, and the dog was under the desk, so it's just a cord that needs to be picked up somewhere. So as the peyote grows, it can produce a range of phenethylamine alkaloids, some of which do have hallucinogenic effects on humans. Once harvested, the little button-shaped fruits can be eaten, brewed as tea, dried and crushed into a powder, which is then loaded into capsules. You can also smoke the dried version. And the primary active ingredient is mescaline, a powerful drug that the U.S. categorizes as a Schedule I substance, making it mostly illegal to possess or consume. Oddly, mescaline does cause a severe reaction in animals, which deters them from eating it. So it's a cactus with no spines.
Mushika. More for me.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's crazy that it grows underground, actually.
Yeah.
And since it doesn't have the spines, it's gotta say, don't eat me somehow, I guess. So indigenous people in parts of North and Central America revere the plant as a way to accentuate their spiritual ceremonies. Native Americans may gather around a fire and share peyote as a shaman or ceremonial leader chants and sings, guiding participants through the experience, which may last 10 hours or longer.
Mm-hmm.
In Mexico, couple of different tribes go on a peyote pilgrimage through the desert several times every year, stopping along the way to take more peyote, which they feel opens channels to their gods. Beyond religious ceremonies, peyote has a long history as a medicine in these cultures as well. People sometimes use the cactus to help with fever, skin problems, blindness, colds, diabetes, and pain. The U.S. government, of course, does not recognize any of these medicinal claims regarding peyote. So, it is technically illegal to possess in the U.S. Unless you're part of the Native American Church. They have permissions to use it. Oh, hey, Marilena. So it was not prohibited until 1970 when the Controlled Substance Act was passed by Congress. So the Native American Church is exempt. And they have to have actually licenses through the FDA and the DEA. Let's see. It was in that same category until somebody went to court and said, hey, no, this is part of my spiritual ceremony. And they're like, okay, fine. So peyote is a religious freedom in some particular groups. Peyote works with the neurotransmitter serotonin in your brain to alter your thinking and perception. And because potency does vary from plant to plant, it's difficult to dose the drugs with any real accuracy. You generally take 10 to 20 grams of dried peyote, which is 3 to 6 buttons, as an average dose. Those who eat peyote cacti or drink its tea report a bitter taste, one so overwhelming that many people become nauseous and wind up vomiting, sometimes violently. Sounds like it'd be better to put it in the capsule and swallow the capsule.
Yeah.
As the drug takes hold, many people see brighter colors or hear louder sounds or lose track of time or place. So time dilation again. They can experience euphoria, detachment, illusions, or visual distortions. As to whether they have a good or bad trip, it can depend upon the expectation of the user and the setting that the user is in. If the trip goes badly, mood swings, paranoia, or panic may occur. Other side effects may include dry mouth, headaches, increased heart rate, and impaired motor skills. So you're going to fall off the couch.
You're going to fall off your bike.
Yes.
I've done that.
Beyond those effects, peyote is not considered as a physically addictive drug. Like mushrooms, users take the drug only occasionally as part of a spirit quest. And with all mind-altering substances, some mental health experts express concerns that peyote may produce psychologically dependency in some users. So I gotta tell you, take a pill every day for your depression, or 2 pills or whatever, and your body builds up a resistance, so it doesn't work anymore, and you have to get something else, and there's a whole process there. Or you take peyote once every 3 months, 4 months.
But see, there are the addictive personalities though, and that's the issue with it.
Yes.
Well, that's the issue with any of this, because if I could find something that would be, it could be. I don't have an addictive personality per se. I don't. My addiction is ice cream, and I haven't had any in a long, long time.
There's ice cream sandwiches in the freezer.
Yeah, but they're little tiny things. I don't even know where you found those. Those are like, for like
I got those from Mini-Me.
Proto-pygmies. Yeah, proto-pygmy. Yeah.
Proto-pygmy.
So they're not really worth anything. He did it again.
No, that was me that time.
Oh, gracious.
That's why I had it stuck to the table there for a while.
But the problem is that people become, they like it so much that it becomes a mental,
An addiction.
An addiction, yeah, a mental addiction, not a physical addiction. Their body's not saying they need it. Their brain is saying they need it. It's an
emotional.
Yes.
Emotional addiction. Well, like for instance, if you have a pain disorder and you find something that takes away the pain, are you addicted to the thing that takes away the pain, or are you addicted to the lack of pain?
Or what it does to you personally, to your body. Yeah, that's what you're saying. So, but if it was safe for me to do something like that every day, I probably would. I probably wouldn't get much done, you know, but but it would be something, you know, like I said, I don't have an addictive personality, so I can walk away from things like that. But
Mhm.
it would be interesting to do for a few days.
Yeah, I agree. So I think peyote would be fine to take. I think it'd be interesting to try. Um, you can, so technically, you could, let's see, so you can traipse across the blistering desert landscape in search of the few remaining plants in South Texas, or you could take part in a spirit walk orchestrated by the Peyote Way Church of God, which is located in a remote part of Arizona desert. After a $400 donation, church leaders will prepare you for your experience, which begins with a 24-hour fast and culminates with your drinking peyote tea. You may have better success going to Mexico, the Mexican town of Real de Catorce, okay, which is a homeland to many Huichol people. I probably pronounced that horribly. Each year sees visitors from all over the world. Many arrive simply to find and experience peyote, which grows in the scrubland around the region. Tourists will hire guides to ferry them into the desert, where they search, sometimes for hours, in hopes of finding peyote buttons, which many of them consume right on the spot. The tours might have an amazing experience, but the locals say that overharvesting from tourists is threatening their peyote supply, and as a result, it's also imperiling religious traditions, which rely on the plant. So once the plant has been harvested, it may take a decade or more to regenerate and produce fruit. So that's insane. 10 years for it to grow back. Wow. So it's pretty scarce, and that's frustrating, and it's currently illegal, so it's hard to get peyote. But the mescaline, which is the chemical that causes the hallucinations and such, can be found in San Pedro, which is a large cactus native to the Andes Mountains, and also Peruvian torch, which is similar to the San Pedro cactus, is also in the Andes. And so they may be an easier source to get that same chemical without getting peyote itself. So in addition to its history as a shamanic tool, mescaline was also the first psychedelic to enter mainstream Western culture, predating the spread of LSD and psilocybin. More recently, the extracted compound has shown promise in the medical and psychotherapeutic treatment of substance abuse, depression, among other conditions. Pure mescaline is usually available as a white or brownish crystalline powder, either loose or packed into capsules to make a mescaline pill. It can also be found as a liquid solution or brew. However, compared to other psychedelics, mescaline extraction tends to be rare in most parts of the world. So you're not going to find it locally, probably. You can maybe order it on Amazon or eBay.
Check Etsy.
Etsy, yeah.
You can get ghost pipe tinctures on Etsy.
That does not surprise me in the slightest. Just the downside of going to Etsy is you don't know what kind of quality you're getting.
Right.
Because not all Etsy stores are created equal.
No. Well, it's the distillation or the extraction process is not necessarily consistent across the many different practitioners.
Exactly. And Marilena, I'm sorry for your loss. I hope you find out what happened. Mescaline effects, generally you feel them within 45 to 90 minutes of consumption. It peaks for 2 to 4 hours and can last up to 8 hours. You are likely to see closed eye visuals of colors and patterns such as mosaics, arabesques, and spiral transforming into visions of more definite objects like architecture, animals, and humans. At the same time, ordinary objects in your surroundings may appear more interesting, beautiful, and amazingly mystical. qualities that define the mescaline experience. Your physical environment may distort in size and form, including your own body. Some have reported loss of limbs, or feel like objects like stones or walls have become soft and malleable to the touch, so the walls are soft and squishy. And as other senses are also affected, sometimes to the point of synesthesia, where the sights may be heard and thoughts may be smelled. So you're going to hear the color orange. Beautiful perfumes and music or voices speaking strange languages have also been reported. For many, mescaline produces an experience of depersonalization or dissolution of the ego. Everything, including oneself, and therefore people feel unified.
Connected, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very connected. Accompanying this may be clear and connected thought, self-realization, empathy, and euphoria. However, bad trips do happen because, well, they do. And dysphoric symptoms may be more common among those who don't pay attention to the set or setting and or have histories of mental illness. So, again, you know, where you're at has a lot to do with your mind.
Right.
So, and your mindset.
Yeah.
So if you set your intention, just like you would a ritual or spell work or anything, which I think is important anyways, you set your intention, you meditate on it, and you hold that intention in place, you know, prior to your ingestion of whatever it is you're taking. Because you've set the intention, like this is going to be this kind of a trip, or I'm here to have that spiritual awareness or spiritual awakening or whatever, not just going for a ride, you know, it's different. And there's often the ritual of preparing yourself influences the experience as well. So
it reminds me of the time my brother and I went to Baja, Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We went down from Seattle into San Francisco, and from San Francisco down to San Diego, and then San Diego down to the tip of Baja on the Pacific Ocean side, and then came back up the Sea of Cortez. And we were in San Francisco, and we were going from the hostel to the bus depot to get the charter bus, and we ate an eighth of Cabenzis each, and walked around all blue-tongued for about an hour. And we were walking through the Tenderloin District, and the Tenderloin District they've ground up glass, and they have black sidewalks, and they ground up the glass, and they put it in the black sidewalk so it looks like stars at night. Well, my brother, who's never really done this before, this is like one of his first, Cabenzi experiences. He's staring at the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden he looks up, and he just keeps going and going and going, and he goes, "That's a pyramid." I said, "Yeah, that's the Transamerica building." He's like, he just kept going and going and going, and I literally had to stop him from falling backwards. And he goes, "I'm going to throw up." It's like, "No, you're not going to do that. Do not do that." So kind of had to talk him through that. And that's part of the reason you need to have the experience. But the difference in the realizations of these different things are just, you were talking about intent and setting. And the setting is important. If you're new to this kind of thing, don't be walking in the Tenderloin District of San Francisco. Just don't do it. You'll get lost in the pavement. It's amazing. Or you'll get lost looking at a building. And it's not safe to be out wandering around at 10 o'clock at night on anything. You want to be safe. You want to be somewhere where you can be comfortable to help give you that comfort, that you can feel good, that you don't have to be worried about where you are, create that anxiety, things like that. So
absolutely.
It's setting.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it in public.
Oh,
Nope.
we used to. We used to.
No.
I dropped a hit of acid before I left Kent, Washington. Got on a public bus. Got halfway to my destination. Had to change buses. Dropped another quarter. Had another sheet, and then dropped another hit when I got to where I was going, and I got stuck in the middle of. I was walking across the street, and I got stuck in the middle of Kent Kangley Road in Kent, and it's like 6 lanes, and I'm in the middle of it. Somebody had to come out of the house and walk me the rest of the way across the street because I was literally standing halfway in the street.
Right. You're crazy. So there was a caller that was holding. I didn't even see it. And our show is over for Friday night. Tomorrow night I'll have Sam on. We'll talk about what's in a name and apothecary stuff. So sorry we didn't get to you, caller. Merry meet, merry part, merry meet again. Stay tuned for Duke on
that
TFR.
went way quick.
It was quick. Have a good night, everyone.
Forever done.